This episode contains mature language and situations. Listener discretion is advised. You wake to the sound of a train. The clack, clack, clack of wheels. In the distance, is that the sound of birds in a forest? No. It's angels in a choir. Or is it demons from hell? It doesn't matter. You have no memory of how you got here. All you know is that you're lost, and that now you belong to the Grey Rooms. Season 4, Episode 5. Previously on the Grey Rooms.
Sir, this here is the Warden.
Choose a door and step through.
Why?
Because if you don't, I'll kill you.
You can call me Bob, Mr. Beckett. Everyone else does.
We have worked together for some time now, you and I, overseen several iterations of the rooms. You have attended dozens of guests. You are one of the pillars of the Grey Rooms, Bob. I trust you. More than that, I like you. Tell me I have nothing to worry about. Tell me that you have a handle on this.
You have nothing to worry about. I have a handle on this. I merely wish to understand...
Enough! We have allowed this charade to go on long enough. Bob, Admiral Beckett has done more for the project in this last few days than you have in years.
I was unaware that my commitment to the project was in question.
The Warden's deterioration, the many little hiccups with Todd's time in the rooms, the loss of Miss Winters. I am deeply and fundamentally questioning your competence.
Overreich, attendant to the Grey Rooms. I, Belial, hold your chain, but I have held it for too long, old friend. Allowed it to go slack. It is time I passed its links to another. A master that will be more attentive. Warden.
We're gonna have so much fun.
I opened my eye and stared up at the colorless ceiling. I had been the project's attendant for centuries, and now I was trapped inside the Grey Rooms. It brought a weak smile to my face, a grimace that caused my cracked lips to bleed and the pain in my head to intensify. We'd worked so hard to imitate the cheap concrete of Raymond's realm. I clearly remembered conversations about pore striations, how cold the cells should be, how much flickering the lights should do. All to manipulate a mortal. All to shape his state of mind. Our first fumbling effort to control the guest, to fulfill the project's potential, and what had the Admiral said? Draw forth blood from a stone. Now, these cells lingered here, deep beneath the walls of Dis, a memento from that turning point in the project, when Belial's bid for power had finally, unmistakably, borne delicious fruit. The perfect place to hold a demon who was no longer of use to the project. Old Wolverike. Old Bob. Old me. I sat up on my threadbare cot, taking in the grim walls, the small table, the metal chair. I had no sense of how much time had passed since that meeting in the Founder's Tower. At some point, someone, the Warden, I assumed, had dressed me in a set of gray cotton pants and a simple gray shirt. The very same clothes we'd given to Raymond, in fact. In the dim light, I could see my breath condensing in the chill air. I reached up to gently touch the filthy bandage covering my left eye socket. A dull ache spread from that wound up into my skull. I was still getting used to having just one eye, and this throbbing reminder of the mindworm's tender ministrations made it difficult to focus, to rally my thoughts. I needed to get my feet back under me. I needed to get moving. I knew if I could just focus, just push past this pain, there was something I could do. I had to do something before...
Hey there, buddy.
Warden. My only reliable way of counting time was the Warden's regular visits. He delighted in reminding me that he now held my chain, that he could do with me whatever he wanted.
What do you think, Bob? You have to spend in a little time together?
I'd much rather rest and recuperate, if you don't mind. Perhaps you could send Todd down with some tea.
Weak little worm. Listen to you, sniveling like a mortal.
Have you had tea recently? It's quite delicious.
You've changed, old friend. I've been telling you for centuries. All this time with mortals has made you soft, rotted you from the inside out.
Agree to disagree, old friend. And if I have changed, well, isn't that something worth celebrating?
You should have heard the founder. Just like you, all teary and pathetic. He thinks I can fix you. Thinks if I can break you hard enough, we can put you back together the way you used to be. But you and I know better, don't we, Bob? It's just going to be you and me down here for the rest of eternity.
You know, an upside of being your prisoner is that I no longer have to pretend your inane ramblings contain some kind of deep meaning. Do you ever get tired of hearing yourself talk?
So, you want the pain to be particularly bad today? Oh, puppies.
Every visit was different. Sometimes he came down in person to treat me to quality time with his chains and blades. I'd been stalked by other demons in his service, by mortal soldiers brought into the hells by the Admiral. Once he had imported a horned beast from the grove to chase me down these endless corridors. It had the leering skull of a deer for a head, and hooves shod with horns and barbed wire. It pursued me for what seemed like weeks, before he let me rest again. Recently, he'd grown fond of unleashing the literal hounds of hell to snap at my heels. To be honest, it was getting a little old.
Better run, Bob. Better run fast. Or maybe this time, I'll forget to call them off.
This was all a game to the Warden. He was no longer interested in anything I had to say, any observations I might have had about the project, any secrets. Now I was nothing more than an amusement. That is why I ran. Because I knew if I stood and tried to fight, if I did anything other than put on a good show, he'd get bored. And a bored Warden was far, far more terrifying than one who was amused. I ran for what seemed like hours, but eventually my strength began to flag. I'd been exhausted when he'd thrown me into these cells, and without any chance to rest, I'd been getting weaker and weaker with each visitation. The hellhounds ran me down, taking out my legs, pulling me to the cold floor of the grey rooms. So cold, it burned. My hot blood steamed on the concrete as they tore into me. He let them use me as a plaything, batting me about the floor, tearing at chunks of my flesh, ravaging my gray clothes. He let them toy with me for a long, long time. Until his bloodlust was sated. Until I'd stopped screaming and just lay there, trembling in agony. My good eye was caked closed with blood, and so I heard, rather than saw, the beasts trotting off down the corridor. Back to their infernal kennel.
Have a good night, Bob. Rest up. I'll see you again. Real soon. Toodaloo.
I lay there, unable to move. I could already feel my wounds beginning to close. It would take days, even weeks, for them to fully heal. If I was patient, I'd be able to crawl back to my cot within just a few hours. This was why the Warden was so happy to hold my chain. He could play as rough as he wanted with me, assured in the knowledge that eventually I'd be whole again, and ready for more torment. My body lay broken in the flickering, dark light of the hallway. I was too exhausted even to weep, and too full of self-hatred to care. For after all, hadn't I laid the groundwork for my own suffering? We say that the choices of the guests mark them as special, but we demons make choices as well. And mine had damned me to a hell of my own creation. In the shadows, I heard movement. Soft, furtive, a footstep. Hello. That was new. If it was a torment dreamed up by the Warden, it was effective. Snarling beasts I could handle. Quiet movements in the dark weren't really his style. I tried to open my eye, rubbing at my face with my hand. Through the crimson fog that filled my vision, I thought I could make out a figure standing a dozen paces away, at the end of the hallway. I squinted. He looked familiar. Raymond, our first guest. The man this complex had been built for. I'd known, intellectually, that he was down here somewhere. I was, after all, the one who'd kept him here. But these passages were an endless maze. I'd never once considered. Raymond, please. I know. I'm sorry, but... Can you help me? He regarded me silently. The flickering light didn't allow me to see the expression on his face. He merely raised a hand, pointing off down the corridor to his right. I don't understand. He stood there, mute. I blinked, trying to clear my vision, and he must have taken the few steps needed to clear the hallway. When I looked again, he was gone. Raymond. No answer. No movement. Digging deep, I called on the last of my strength and hauled myself upright. Using a hand on the wall, I managed, after several tries, to stand. My clothes were in tatters, and blood pooled in footprints as I slowly, agonizingly slowly, made my way down the hall. I reached the end and peered down the right-hand passage. He was there, again, at the far end. He held out a hand, beckoning me forward. Please, I'm exhausted, Raymond. Will you help me? My legs shuddering underneath me, I continued to shamble forward. I was within just a few feet of him when he stepped off down a side passage, not even glancing back behind him. This little game went on for long minutes. The mortal stuck to the shadows, never allowing me a look at his face. He never spoke, no matter what I said to him, no matter how much I begged. Finally, as I dragged myself down what seemed just another corridor, Raymond held out his hand. Palm out. Stop. I did, and nearly collapsed. He pointed. I looked, and realized I was standing before a door. That was not terribly unusual down here, but most of the loci had been loaded out years ago, the doorways left hanging empty. This vast warren of hallways left to rot. Somehow, we'd missed one. A plaque glimmered in the dim light, and I could just make out a flickering illumination beyond the hinges. The sign said, simply, Invasive. What is this? He gestured, and the door swung open. You want me to go through? The figure nodded. It made a certain kind of sense. The rooms, terrible as they were, paled in comparison to the endless torment I'd find in these dour halls. I'd no doubt return here upon exiting the room, but perhaps this might be my only chance. A chance to set the Warden on his heels, to find an exit. And all because of Raymond. Thank you. I don't know why you're doing this, but thank you. Even in the end, he said nothing. Merely watched as I took a few steps forward. Watched as the power of the rooms claimed me. And watched as the door closed behind me. For all I know, he's watching there still. In the darkness. In the cold. Of the grey rooms.
Port Jones, last stop.
I get off the bus with a dozen or so tourists before the bus leaves with the sun setting in the distance.
This your first time here?
No. I wish.
We're
so excited.
Aren't you worried about the glow? That it might be radiation or something?
Don't be paranoid. They're plants. They're natural. Plus, it's like so great for the gram.
Port Jones was a tiny coastal town. When I was a kid, the fishing industry was already on the decline, but still successful enough to bolster the main economy, tourism. People came from all over the world to see our seaside town. The tall ships, eat fresh seafood, and gawk at our bright and colorful homes. Port Jones's fishing industry completely collapsed a few years back. The government tried to help, but their help was to put restrictions on the fishing of animals that no longer existed. When the industry fell apart, the homes fell into disrepair. Local businesses lost local dollars, which had previously kept the town going through the winter, and half of Main Street shuttered. The domino effect continued, but people still held on to something here. Were they too much a part of the town to leave? Were they like branches of a tree, and when they fell off, they died? This is my first time back in town in a few years. I don't think anyone will be too happy to see me, since I was officially exiled from Port Jones.
You all must see how crazy this is. Mandy? Sandra was your best friend. Aren't you scared what happened to her is going to happen to all of you?
Don't you dare bring up her name. You poisoned her mind long before it took her.
Get on the bus, Leigh.
Joe? Come on, you were supposed to be the voice of reason here.
Get on the bus, Leigh.
They had me at gunpoint. What was I supposed to do?
You'll be fine. Go write your stories somewhere else. Just don't write about Port Jones, or we'll come find you.
The purple plants haven't gone anywhere, but I knew they wouldn't. Every storefront is covered in them now. As the sun sets, their purple glow becomes brighter. Some of the businesses are operating out on the street, even in the middle of winter. I'm sure it's because the insides of their stores are completely taken over by the spike-covered plants.
No!
Hey! Stop throwing snow at me!
The few locals I've passed so far, people I went to school with, like a decade older than me now. Their dead eyes, their scowls. They've been here too long. The plants do something to you. Soon the whole town will know I'm back, and I don't know what'll happen to me when they do. There's Joe's Cafe. It's where I used to do a lot of my writing. Sandra and I used to grab coffee there all the time. I know I shouldn't, but I can't help myself. I go inside.
Leigh? What are you doing here? If Joe sees you...
I'll take this, Mandy. Go take your break.
But,
Go take your break, Mandy.
Sure thing, Joe.
What the hell are you doing here, Leigh? Trying to get yourself killed? You know some folks around here wouldn't think twice about pulling the trigger on you.
Just here for some coffee, Joe.
I'll get you your coffee. And you get the fuck out of here and get back on the bus back to wherever you came from.
I take my coffee black, Joe, in case you forgot. The purple vines are all over the cafe. They cover tables and creep up the walls. They cover or partially cover lights on the ceiling. The tourists place their coffee cups between the giant spikes on their tables. Do they not see the vines twitching and moving? Do they think it's cool? Do they not care? Back in town a couple minutes and I can already smell them again. There was a meeting here, a long time ago, where we sealed the fate of the town.
Okay. I don't want to keep this closed sign up much longer, so let's get this meeting started. So, what are people's thoughts on what we should be doing here? Tourism is up, for sure. We're all seeing that. But I know some of you are getting worried with the purple plants popping up all over town. Perhaps the local member of parliament has an idea?
Well, I don't think we need to do anything, aside from putting some advertisements on TV or even social media. This is the best thing that's happened to our town in... Hell, this could be the best thing that's ever happened. Look at how much tourism we've gotten. Usually this would be the slow season, coming into winter. But look outside. Look at all of them. Here to see the purple pods and take selfies with them. There isn't a single room or couch left to rent in town.
As your member of provincial parliament, I have to interject here. Is no one else concerned that perhaps this is an invasive species? Or possibly a harmful man-made organism?
Fuck off, tree hugger.
Is no one concerned that the pods started growing purple vines which sprouted purple plants? They're not natural. And among the ever-thickening plant life on the beach, more pods have appeared. There are no markings in the sand to show they washed up from the water. It's like they just materialized.
So, what would you propose?
Well, I think we should be shutting down the town to tourists until we can get additional scientists out here to figure out if these plants are safe.
Have you noticed the smell? I thought so. It's like a rotting.
Death. It smells like death.
Yeah, death. It's like the worst on the beach, but... Has anyone asked the tourists about it? They can't seem to smell it at all. I live pretty close to the beach, you know that. And those purple weeds started popping up on my lawn. When I tried pulling them, I got a big whiff of that death stench.
What's your point, Mandy?
Well, if it's this bad, or noticeable, at least to us locals, should we be breathing it in? We keep talking about how the pods are the antidote for our town's disease, but maybe they're just a new strain of decay.
The meeting ended with no new plans. The consensus, or the false hope we latched onto, was that we had survived the hardest times a town can go through, and we were still going, so we could put up with a little plant stink.
Here's your coffee. Now move along.
Thanks, Joe. It was nice to see you. Coffee still sucks.
Bye, Leigh.
I passed the Purple Pod, a bar some out-of-work fishermen started after the first wave of tourists started showing up. A few buildings down from the Purple Pod is the Recorder, the newspaper my grandparents started and handed off to me when they died. I did my best to keep the vegetable alive. Should have just pulled the plug. Most of my time as editor and sole journalist was spent filling the pages with advertisements. My only noteworthy achievement as a journalist was my series on the purple plant life in Port Jones that was picked up by CBC Maritimes. I blame those stories for the real boom in tourists. If I hadn't written them, if they'd never been published nationally, tourism might not have saved and doomed the town. And maybe we could have all left. Maybe we'd all be happy and alive. Maybe Sandra'd still be alive. I have to get in. The insides look like I've been gone decades. Warped purple tree trunks have pushed through from the basement into the recorder's office on the first floor and continue up the ceiling into the apartment above I once called home. I spent long nights up there, working over the weekly paper or with Sandra when she could get a babysitter. Sandra and I had grown up together. Like most girls who stayed in town after high school, she married a fisherman, got knocked up before she was 20. After he died, she stuck around, running her parents' general store. When I moved back home to take over the recorder, she'd come by, asking about advertising pricing, even though she didn't need to advertise. Everyone in town knew she owned the only general store. I'm not so innocent. I certainly didn't really go through as many packs of gum as I bought from the store. It wasn't long before we started having wine nights at my apartment. And one night, after one too many wines, I leave the recorder. I should burn the thing down. Maybe take a couple purple plants with it. But I just walk away. It's what I'm best known for. The plants would probably survive the fire anyways. The vines pull the door shut behind me. The stench is overpowering now. That's how I know I'm a local, no matter how many times I've run away or been forced away. I can see the ocean from the general store stoop. The spike-covered vines have swallowed up Sandra's store and home. The only letters still visible on the sign are N and E, and I hope any curious tourists take that to mean no entrance. I put my foot down on the first wooden step. The vines around the white building, not that you can see the paint anymore, wrap tighter. I take my foot off the steps and think of the last time I saw Sandra.
Sandra?
I heard her screaming down the street and came running.
Sandra!
Her front yard had already been taken by the vines. She was standing out in front of the mass of purple plant life on her front yard. Sandra wouldn't stop punching and kicking the purple spines. Her knuckles had no skin left on them. There was only one thing that could have been in the vines to make her act that way. I didn't see her son anywhere.
It took him. The plants, they fucking took him.
I'll go grab my chainsaw. Wait here a sec.
No.
Sandra knew nothing could cut the plants. She knew it was hopeless. Sandra grabbed my arm and pulled me to the sidewalk.
Sit with me, Leigh. Please.
We sat there for a long while as the vines continued to crush her dead little boy into plant food. I kicked the vines away that reached out for our ankles. Sandra seemed fine letting the vines take her. Snow began to fall, reflecting the purple glow. The color was nauseating. I tried to bring her inside, put her to bed, but she wouldn't move from the sidewalk. I left her there, knowing she'd never walk away. Never walk anywhere again. I'm not going to stick around to grieve for Sandra. I made my peace with the entire town's demise a long, long time ago. I head for the beach, where it all started. Memories and regrets flood my vision. I fall to my knees and vomit in the sand. Tiny purple vines wriggle in the puke, and I puke again. It was Gord Lefebrve who found the first purple pod on the beach. He came running into Joe's cafe one afternoon. I was working on a story and sipping burnt coffee. The rest of the people in there were unemployed fishermen, waiting to get a call for some township work or of a tourist wanting a sea voyage.
Come, quick! The beach! Come now!
I followed a posse of men down the beach. The pod was like a giant, smooth boulder, glowing purple. Men tried to lift it, they even tried a forklift, but nothing budged the damn thing. I remember Sandra putting her hand on my shoulder and saying to me,
"Guess you finally got something to write about."
"Sure, I'll get my Pulitzer for radioactive sea trash." She pulled her hand off my shoulder. Relationships like ours didn't go over well in Port Jones. By the time the scientists came around, the first purple vines had started sprouting up on the beach. The memories don't feel real as I'm standing before the great purple jungle in front of me. Looks like centuries of growth, not years. Inevitably, some tourists ventured into the purple bush. I was working in the recorder's office before it'd been taken over by the purple plants. The recorder, one moment, please. The recorder, one moment, please. I'm gonna have to hire a secretary at this rate. The recorder,
Hey, it's Joe.
Hey, Joe. What's...
Need you down at the beach. A couple of tourists have gone missing.
Missing? How do
They
you...
were staying with Martha Toombs in her spare room. They haven't gone back to her place in a couple of days. Martha says the last she spoke with them, she was trying to warn them about going into the forest on the beach. Leigh, you still there?
Yeah, I'm heading down to the beach now. We entered the purple forest, against our better judgment. Luckily, it didn't take long to find the bodies. They were hung from the spike-covered vines. I wondered if they died from being hanged, or from the giant spikes sticking into their necks. We couldn't cut the vines down, so unless we hacked the tourists to bits, we weren't getting them down. Should we call the RCMP?
I ought to knock your teeth out for suggesting that.
Joe, come on, we can't just leave them out here.
I'm sorry, Leigh. I know that might make a nice news story for you, and you could write that big journalism piece about how our town fell back into a depression when all the tourists got scared away. But the rest of us depend on this tourism. If they go away, we die.
So we're just going to leave them out here? You don't think that their families will come looking for them?
Pretty sure I saw them leave town a couple of days ago. Anyone else see that?
Yeah, I seen that too. Sandy?
Yeah, no, I saw them leave too.
We'll put up a fence around the forest, warning people not to go in. If they still go in, that's on them.
And of course, more tourists went missing. The purple trees and the purple vines with their purple spikes open a path for me. They're welcoming me in. Their stink has gone sweet, enticing, not nauseating. I accept their invitation, and I walk into the forest and let them take me. I accept what I've known ever since the mob put me on the bus.
Last call, Moncton.
I sat at the back of the bus. We were somewhere between Halifax and Moncton, a long, long way from home. I was trying to process what the hell had happened to me.
Excuse me.
Yeah?
I think your phone is going off in your breast pocket.
I looked down. My chest was glowing, but my phone was in my pants pocket. I peered down my shirt and saw the glowing purple from beneath my skin. Like the purple pod and their purple plants, I never belonged in this town. It's the only place we've ever belonged.
Invasive, written by Ian A. Bain. With performances by Kelly Nienaltowski as Leigh, Graham Rowat as Gord Lefebrve, Christy Bolton as Sandra, Jeff Clement as Joe, Graham Rowat as Politician Number 1, David Cummings as Politician Number 2, Graham Rowat as Brian Riley, Christy Bolton as Mandy, Christy Bolton as the Old Lady, and Graham Rowat as the bus driver, and Christy Bolton as the tourist. Back to the Grey Rooms, written by Michael Zenke, featuring performances by Alistair Mackey as Todd, Jason Wilson as the Warden, Eddie Cooper as Beckett, Graham Rowat as Bob, Margaret Ashley as the Architect, and Joe Stofko as Belial. Musical composition was by J.M. Scherf. Episode artwork, web development, and creative direction by Cassie Pertit. Patreon management by Brooks Bigley. Videography is by Hale Scherf. Community management by Tori Miller. Audio engineering and sound design was by me, Jason Wilson. Another episode ripe for the taking. Just make sure you don't feed any plants this week. Doubly so if they are named Audrey too. If you survived this flora onslaught, we will see you next week as we venture through another door. And of course, we always have to thank our patrons. And speaking of our patrons, we would also like to take the time to thank our patrons once again, and any of those who have taken the time to leave us a 5-star rating and a review. Those reviews keep us at the top of the charts and makes it easier for more twisted souls to find the show. And if you'd like to get these episodes ad-free, then go to patreon.com/The Grey Rooms and find the tier that's right for you. Plus, much more. Patrons like Aaron Anthony, Adam Poston, Allison Chains, Amanda Siegfried, Amy Nikolai, Annalise Belladonna, Arthur Unk, Aura Hart, Colton Quickle, Danny the Spoon Lord, Doozer Pendon, Ellie Dowell, Ellen Houghton, Emily Cullen, Engineer Cy, Eric Pritchard, Eric Phones, Evan Jaffe, Gage Mecro, GT, Harrison Lively, Jackalbot Snows, Jason Porras, Jeremiah Overstreet, Jeremy Schaefer, Joanna Walker, Julian Rether, Katie Tatry, Kelly Bear, Klaus H., Kyle Wilcox, Laura Lupinetti, Lynn Browning, Mary Jane Dillevue, Megan Pruitt, Michael Velez, Mitch Garretts, My Ex Does Porn, Mick Paul Gems, Nightmare Rabbit, Paik Carey, Patrick Stewart, Plin Plin Plon, All Night Long, Ramius, Riley Warren, Ronan Kumori, Rorschach of Flesh, Ryan McGann, Ryzan the Mad, Sandy King Carpenter, Scott Johnson, Sean Geary,
Serena Eli, Spirit Live, Talicia Gallman, The Good Prof, Teresa Tabor, TJ Hodder, The Undisputed Baron of Disneyland, Wolf Delta Pi, Zektos Veraskul Shaktolas, Ken Wilson, Richard Wright, Ian Dominy, Michael Krebs, Robert Wilson, and Rhiannon. The Grey Rooms is also streaming for free on Spotify. Just get the Spotify app or open the browser and search The Grey Rooms. We here at The Grey Rooms love our listeners and want to give back to you in the best way we know how. We have a lot of fun things to show you, and we hope you love them. You can find out more by joining us on social media. You can find us on Instagram, YouTube, Reddit, Twitter, and Facebook. And we took your advice and extended an olive branch to all of the tortured souls who have passed through the rooms. Our emotional support group is always looking to help you with all of your needs. And don't you forget about our merch store. It's full of epic designs and logos for you to sport, showing the world you are a survivor of these very rooms. All of this can be found in the show notes or on our website at thegrayrooms.com. And then, of course, the wonderful, exceptional, top-tier, top-of-the-line community in all of, well, the world, but definitely horror fiction. That's the Grey Rooms Discord channel. Wonderful human beings as far as the eye can see. Extremely supportive. They'll help you if you want to be a writer, or they'll help you if you just want to learn how to be a better killer in Dead by Daylight. Yep, we play that over there. So if you'd like, hop on in for game nights with us. It's a blast. Also, movie nights. The patrons just voted to have a movie night with the general listener, and we all watched Krampus to celebrate the holiday season. So if you'd like to join in, meet all the wonderful people involved with the Grey Rooms and those that support the Grey Rooms, and have a lot of other immeasurable, awesome, fun things to do, stop on over to Discord today, join. I'm telling you, you need it in your life. Speaking of needing it in your life, we have another episode coming out shortly. So, have to get back to work. So till next time, stay gray, and we'll see you next week.
This has been a Grey Rooms production. Copyright 2021 and 2022.